Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, we're going to go over how to get started with programming on the iPad. I'll assume you have a Bluetooth keyboard, and if not, I'll have a link down below on a keyboard that I use for all my devices. Just to make sure we get down to the video, I'll assume you'll also have the following apps: Pythonista for programming Python on the iPad, and Working Copy to handle code versioning. And that's it. Just make sure you're signed into Working Copy with your Git credentials, and also make sure that you're on the latest version of iOS. Alright, first, if you're not on iPadOS, you can go ahead and skip to the next section. If you are on iPadOS, which is iOS 13, we're going to first enable mouse support. First, we're going to go to Settings and then Accessibility. We're going to make sure that Assistive Touch is on and then pair our Bluetooth mouse. To do that, you want to click on Pointing Devices and then make sure that your Bluetooth mouse can be connected by the iPad. You may also use a wired mouse if you have one. Now that we have that, we're going to go to github.com and create our first repository. Let's name it iPad Pythonista. You can name it any repository you want. I just like to keep mine simple. Let's make it a public repository and initialize it with a readme, git ignore, and a license. Next, we're going to go over to Working Copy and clone the repository. Click on the plus icon and then select Clone Repository. Search for the repository we just created and then click Clone. We now have, because of Working Copy, our repository that we created from GitHub on the iPad, which will then use Pythonista to commit and push changes of our code back to GitHub. Finally, let's create a quick Flask app on the iPad and then push our changes to Git. I'm going to open up Pythonista and then create a new file. Let's create an empty script and then save it on the iPad. I'm going to rename this file to iPad Instagram Flask API since that's what we'll make by the end of the video series. Alright, let's make our super simple app. Let's first import Flask and then we'll create our new class Insta API. I'm going to instantiate the Flask app variable right below, and we're not going to do much with the init function now, but in a later video we will. So now that we have that, let's have our first endpoint ping. And what I want to do is define it so that when a user accesses the ping endpoint, we'll get back the response pong. Cool, we're almost done here. I'm going to make a run function so that our Flask app will properly run a server on our iPad. So finally, our entry point of the entire application will be made down below. We're just going to instantiate the class and then execute the run function. Okay, with our code done, we're going to run our Flask application, and we can see that the Flask application opened up port 8080 on localhost. Now let's go to our browser and go to that endpoint. Alright, there you have it. We wanted ping and we got pong. Cool, I can refresh the page. Let's go back to Pythonista, and I do want to let you know that because iPad has a split view functionality, you can also easily work on your API on the left while verifying the API on your browser. I'm also going to demonstrate in the console you see here that our Flask API is responding to our request from Firefox. You can see that I'm constantly refreshing, and we are serving the API correctly. Alright, the last bit that I want to show before signing off is sharing the code to Working Copy, committing the code, and pushing the code to GitHub. Let's click on the wrench button at the top right hand corner of Pythonista, click on the share button, we'll scroll through the app list all the way through to the right and select more. We're going to select Working Copy and then save our Python file. We'll have an opportunity to commit our changes. Somehow when I tried to do this earlier during the recording, my spacebar wasn't working, so bear with me here. Let's commit our changes and then go over to Working Copy, where we'll select our remote origin and then click Push. Our code is now pushed to GitHub, and I'm going to go over to our browser to see that the code that we wrote in Pythonista is now on GitHub. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Hope I can continue making this video series. You won't hear long intros or outros aside from this first video, and I hope to see you in the next one.